all students would be joining, or
Good morning, sir. Very good morning.
Namaskar,
Sir.
sir?
Thank you very
Namaskar.
much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So we can start then.
Thank you
Yeah.
for permitting me to join.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you
We
very
are
much,
indeed
sir.
grateful.
Thank you. So we can start then.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Good morning to one and all present here, respected professor in charge, sir, all my colleagues and participants. Today we are here to discuss on the topic and analysis of anti-defection law in India. What is the historical background of this law? What is the applicability of this law? What is the current scenario in our country? To explain all these things, we have with us our chief guest of the webinar, Shri Satyapal Jain, sir. Sir is Additional Solicitor General of India. Sir is also the former member, Law Commission of India, and is designated as Senior Advocate practicing in Supreme Court, Punjab and Haryana High Court, as well as in other high courts. Started his political career as President of Students' Union, Christian High School, then the Central Council of Government College, Chandigarh, and thereafter elected as General Secretary of Punjab University Students' Council in 1974 by getting highest number of votes. Several times, Sir has been elected and nominated as Senate member of Punjab University. Sir remained as Member of Parliament from Chandigarh for 2 consecutive terms. I welcome you, sir, on the behalf of Campus Law Center. We also have with us guest of honor of the webinar, Professor Dr. Devinder Singh. Sir is working as Professor in Department of Laws in Punjab University, Chandigarh, and has 18 years of teaching experience of constitutional law and human rights. Sir holds various reputed positions in different universities like Coordinator of Dr. Ambedkar Center, Punjab University, Dean Faculty of Law, Punjab Technical University, Legal Counsel to Punjab University. Sir also served as SVC of Punjab University. Sir was elected as PUTA President, that is Punjab University Teachers Association, in the year of 2013 and 14. I would also like to introduce Professor Dr. Raman Mittal, sir. Sir is the professor in charge of Campus Law Center. Sir has authored and edited various books, particularly in IPR, and has published uncountable articles in journals of repute. He has so far worked on 6 major projects and also the gold medalist in LLM from Punjab University. I welcome you, sir. Now I request Professor Dr. Raman Mittal, sir, to welcome our guest.
So very good morning to all of you. Thank you very much, Akashji.
Thank you, sir.
So friends, elections in any democratic country allow the people to assert their desire, and defections occurring between elections undermine the desire and thus threaten the expressed will of the people. An extreme example of defection occurred in 1967 when the legislator Gaya Lalj changed his allegiance 3 times in a single day, giving rise to the popular expression Aya Ram Gaya Ram. Such shifting of allegiance can be considered to be a symptom of endemic political corruption, which gave rise to anti-defection law that we have today in our country. The primary intentions of this law were: 1, to curb political corruption, which was seen as a necessary first step to addressing other forms of corruption in the country. 2nd, to strengthen democracy by bringing stability to politics. And 3rd, to make members of parliament more responsible and loyal to the parties with whom they were aligned at the time of their elections. Because many people believe that the party allegiance plays a key role in the electoral success of a candidate. So we have 2 sides of the scale. On the one side, we can say that defections can amount to betrayal of the people's mandate. And second, the other side is that defections can also be perceived as freeing the elective legislators from the chains of obstructionism and orthodox politics. So the truth lies somewhere in between. So friends, let us join together in welcoming Mr. Satyapal Jain, who is presently the Additional Solicitor General of India and who has been a Member of Parliament twice and has donned various positions and various hats. We welcome you, sir, and we are extremely thankful that you took time out for our students. And then we are also extremely grateful to Professor Devinder Singh for joining us. Over to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Nagpal, Professor Mittal, Professor Devinder, and all your colleagues who gave this opportunity to me to interact with you on a very important aspect of the Indian Constitution, Indian politics, Indian social the popularly known as anti-defection law, and which is, as you know, is the 10th schedule to the Constitution of India, dealing with the situations that might arise because of the elected person changing their party or joining another party and all that. Professor Mittal just referred to defections in 1967. As a matter of fact, that was the worst year when the defections were at their peak. He rightly mentioned about the case of Mr. Gayalal in Haryana, who changed his party, he says 3 times a day. Information is that even it was more than that. And it was because of that Mr. Y.B. Chauhan, who was the S.B. Chauhan, who was the Home Minister at that time, said in Lok Sabha, because of his name Gayalal, that it's a game of Ayarams and Gayarams. That was the issue there. In Kehato Holohoun's case, which was perhaps the first constitution judgment after the enactment of this act, upholding the validity of the act, except a few 1 or 2 sections of the final part. The Supreme Court in paragraph 6 of the judgment noticed the defections, and they noted that roughly between 67 to 68, about 438 defections occurred in these months. I mean, you can imagine, more than 400 people, they have given all the details because at that time it was thought, the process came that why not to do something to prohibit an MLA from leaving the party, joining another party, or seeking what action can be taken either by the party or by law or by the parliament or assembly against those persons. Ultimately, things continued, committees formed, one after the another, recommendation came, and ultimately 1985, this 10th schedule to the Constitution of India was added. And this is the act which is ordinarily known as the anti-defection law. Right at the beginning, I would like to clarify one. This disqualification used. You are not disqualified from contesting election. The only thing is that your membership comes to an end. You cease to be a member of that house. And after that, now Article 361B has been added in the Indian Constitution, which says that if you are disqualified because of defection, as visualized in Schedule 10th of the Constitution of India, you cannot hold any office unless you are re-elected to the house. Meaning thereby that if you are disqualified today from the membership of the present house, as per Article 361B, there is a by-election, and if you can contest and come back again to the same house on the ticket of a new party which you like to go there. Now, sir, the 10th scheduled, there are 3 conditions which I have been saying that they expect the status quo on the date of election to be maintained by the elected representatives. If you are elected on the ticket of a political party, you are supposed to remain with that party till the expiry of the term of that house. You cannot leave. You cannot leave the party. And if you are elected as an independent MLA, you cannot join any other political party. So independent can't join a party man can't leave the party. Meaning thereby that the situation on the day of election, status quo has to continue. Now, how can an action be taken against an MLA or MP under the 10th schedule? Paragraph 2 deals with 2 situations. Number 1, either you have voluntarily given up the membership of the party on whose ticket you were elected. The word is voluntarily given up. Meaning thereby, whether you have formally given or you have even informally given, this both are the cause for taking action against you under the anti-defection law. The reason is very simple. In Jagjit Singh's case, 1987 Supreme Court, that some people left the party, independents joined the party without becoming the formal its members. The Supreme Court said that we can draw the conclusion, the presumption from the facts of the case, even if you have not formally given the resignation letter, even if you have not formally joined a party, but your conduct shows, your behavior shows that you have done so, even then you can be disqualified. Second was the issue of independents who cannot join any other party, and if they join, they stand disqualified from the membership of the house. Now, 2 conditions voluntarily given up. Second, if you abstain from voting or you vote against the mandate of the party. In both these situations, you can be disqualified. But then there is a saving clause for those MLAs that if you abstain or you vote against the party, there is a discretion given to the party to condone that deficiency or act of defiance or violation of the whip. And in that situation, if the party condones it, then it goes, then you cannot be disqualified. Now, sir, after detailed discussion, these are the three conditions on which an MLA can be disqualified, MP can be disqualified under the 10th schedule. There was a lot of discussion in the committee also, parliament also, as to who should be given the power to disqualify an MLA or MP under the 10th schedule. And ultimately, the consensus evolved that let this power be given to the speaker, because speaker of the house is a person who watches the conduct of those persons in the house, in the parliament, in the Vidhan Sabha. And ultimately, it is who is aware of all the facts of the case. Therefore, this power was given to the speaker. I will come to the role of the speaker a little later. As to what has been the role of the speakers, how the different courts have commented on that, how the Supreme Court has also now commented on that. That will be the last issue I will be taking. But sir, the issue was raised that by forcing an MLA or an MP to toe the party line, not to violate the party whip and all that, are you not taking away the right of the MLA, of the individual? He is an individual, he is a citizen of India, to express his point of view, to say whatever he wants to do. You are imposing unreasonable instructions on the working of the MPs and the MLAs. Now, in Prakash Singh Badal's case, 1987 Supreme Court, which perhaps was the first case in any high court to challenge the validity of this act, Justice S.P. Goyal's judgment, which is the full bench, concurred with that. The majority concurred with that. The Supreme High Court very rightly said that when you are elected as an MLA or an MP on the ticket of a political party, people vote not only for the individuals, they vote for the party also. We have seen in recent elections, for example, now 2014, 2019 Lok Sabha elections, the people voted for the leadership of Shri Narendra Modi, the BJP. In 1971, when Mrs. Gandhi won the parliament election, it was primarily I'm saying, not that that was the only consideration, on the leadership of Srimati Indira Gandhi in 71. In 96, when Mr. Vajpayee was elected as the Prime Minister, then in 98 again, primarily people voted for making him the Prime Minister and for the BJP. So the full bench in Prakash Singh Badal's case has dealt with this issue. And Justice S.P. Goyal's judgment says that, look here, people vote not only for the individuals, but for the party also. Then an issue was raised that, and a very beautiful paragraph there. He says anti-defection law doesn't stop you from changing your party. It doesn't stop you. Anti-defection law only says that if you change your party on whose you were elected, then you were disqualified. If you want to change your party, you are free to do it. But then the only course left is the real course, the best course, the constitutional course is resign your seat from the house, get the mandate of the people on the new party which you want to get to be elected. So therefore, putting in simpler words, the restriction is on the right of an MLA that you can't do it elected on the ticket of one political party, defeating the other candidate, and then for your personal gains, for your peculiar gains, you join the other political party. That has been prohibited by the law. As Mr. Mittal said in the opening remarks, in certain states, in UP, long time back, 100 ministers were inducted in the cabinet for the stability of the government. 100 ministers, because at that time there was no limit. This 15% limit later came on. What happened and what used to happen in various states was that there is a dearth of, or you are lacking majority by 5, 10 or 15 MLAs, and all the cabinet berths will be given to those who are coming from the opposite party. This is something which is given on record. There are certain other considerations which are not on record. God knows. The giver and the taker, only those knows what are those considerations. So the corruption had gone to such an extent that this law had to be enacted and these provisions had to be provided. Now, one thing more came with the passage of the act, and there was a clause, paragraph 3, that this clause, this section will not apply if 1/3 MLAs of the party, total strength of the legislature party. Legislature party means the MLAs or MPs who are elected on the ticket of that party. If there is a split and the split is voted by 1/3 MLAs, then they will be saved from disqualification. Intention, in fact, was that if there is a genuine difference of opinion, the MLA should not suffer. They have the right to choose the party where they have to go. Now, this was deleted in 2003 because it was found that everywhere, wherever the MLAs wanted to go, they will just try to form 1/3 group and say there is a split in the party, and therefore we are going and forming first split, and after a few days of the split, you form another party and join the new party. This was deleted. Now the only exception is paragraph 4, which says that if there is a difference of opinion within a party, the party wants to merge with any other political party. So there are 3 conditions which save you from the disqualification. First, the party on whose ticket you were elected decide to merge with other political party. That is the first condition. This endorsement is done by the legislature party also. And the third is very important, which is third. 2/3 of the MLAs of the party means 2/3 members of the legislature party. If they want to continue, they accept the merger, it will be a merger. They will be accepted to be members of the other political party, the new party. If it is not, then others can continue with the same political party. These both clauses, 1/3 factor and 2/3, was also exploited by the interested groups, various groups in different states. In Haryana, in last assembly election, 5 out of 6 MLAs of the Haryana Janhit Congress, which is a very famous case reported in Supreme Court, Kuldeep Bishnoi versus Speaker of Haryana, ultimately decided by Justice Altamas Kabir. 5 out of these 6 MLAs, members of the legislature party, decided to merge their party with the Congress. Same day merger application is given, same day recognized by the Speaker, without any merger of the original political party. And now ultimately, the High Court also held, Supreme Court also held, that unless there is a merger of the political party, this merger by the 2/3 MLAs of the party alone is not sufficient to save their membership. In a number of states, this thing has happened. And now this is ultimately pending. The issue of Speaker's decision is pending in the Supreme Court, because in this game they know it very well how to come out of it. First was exploited, that has gone. Now 2/3 issue is again exploited, but the limit exploiting for the personal end is comparatively limited. Now, sir, the power goes with the Speaker. In 1996, Mayawati's case, Justice Punchi said in his judgment for the first time that it has been seen that the speakers don't decide the anti-disqualification petitions for a very, very long time. The tenure of the Vidhan Sabha is 5 years. For example, in Haryana, like Haryana, where the stability of the government just depends upon the number of the defectors. And if the petition is decided, the government can go either way, either it can go with the defectors, or it can be dismissed, or it can survive. It depends upon different situations. So Supreme Court for the first time said in Mayawati's case, Justice Punchi, that ordinarily 3 weeks time is sufficient for the Speaker to decide the petitions. And I may tell you, in certain cases, for years together, the speakers have not been deciding the applications. In UP, like that Ram Sameer Maurya's case, the issue is 1/3 of 69, or at that time this issue split was there. The Honorable Speaker did not decide for years together, and ultimately the matter went to Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court themselves disqualified those MLAs because they were certainly falling short of the requisite number strength of the 1/3 MLAs. I am saying this because the whole purpose of setting aside the action of the defecting MLAs, the whole purpose of disqualifying them from the membership of the House, the whole purpose of punishing those MLAs was washed away by the action of the Speaker, who continued to be members of the same political party on whom they were elected. Now, in the case of Mani, recently, about 3 months back, the Supreme Court has directed the Speaker to decide the petition within 4 weeks. And when it was not decided, So Justice Nariman passed an order saying that this MLA will not be able to even enter the Vidhan Sabha. He will cease to be a money. Point I'm saying is this, that though the power to decide the disqualification petitions, which are very clear, I mean, it's not a very long act, it's not a question of very long interpretation of the long provisions of law. It's only just 2-page, paragraph 6-7 paragraphs of the total petition, should not take more time. But speakers after speaker, with all respect and with all humility, I say, have tried. And even the Supreme Court has said in a number of judgments, the legal luminary is also discussing it, the theorists are also discussing it. Can we find a way of taking away these powers from the speaker and give it to some independent authority? Under Article 102 and 191 of the Constitution of India, where the issue of other disqualifications other than the 10th schedule are concerned, this goes to the, in the case of MPs, to the President of India, in the case of MLAs, to the Governor of the House. And Governor in turn sent this to the Election Commission of India. And Election Commission, after holding an inquiry, submits its finding to the President or the Governor, which are final. And Governor or the President of India is bound to accept that. I think the time has come. Now people belonging to all political parties should evolve on that. Should we take away these powers from the speaker and give it to some independent authority, maybe the Election Commission of India, maybe some tribunal, maybe High Court, so that the petitions can be decided within time, so that these people, in spite of having incurred a constitutional disqualification of remaining a member of the House, are not permitted, are not able to extend it to the whole term of the House. In Haryana, when the disqualification came, the House had already gone for the next Vidhan Sabha elections. 5 years' time, though the election took place immediately. Similar is the case in a number of states. And I must admit very candidly, it's not the case of any one political party. Somewhere one party is the gainer, in other state, other party is the gainer. In one state, it is the members of one political party who have defected and joined one political party. In another state, it is totally the reverse. So if a consensus is arrived at the national level, I am of the view that the time has come when now two things must be done. Number one, take away the power of deciding the disqualification from the speaker, give it to some independent authority. Number two, fix a time period, maybe 3 months, 4 months, for whatever reasonable time is there. 3 months is the reasonable time to decide these petitions by either the speaker or the new authority if it goes to them. Mr. Venkaiah Naidu, when he took over as the Vice President of India, so as a chairman of the Rajya Sabha, the question of disqualification of 2 MPs came to him. I will not name them. They are very prominent people. And I remember Mr. Venkaiah Naidu delivered the judgment within 3-4 months. And in the judgment itself, he mentioned that time has come when the presiding officer should be compelled to take a decision one way or the other. Because this is very, very important, because of the reason the time of the legislature is fixed. You can't extend it, but you can extend qualification or disqualification of the concerned MLAs, which plays havoc with the democratic functioning. So 2 things I think now need to be settled out. 3, certain cases, Supreme Court gave direction to the speaker to decide the petition within reasonable time, like Justice Nariman in Manipur case did it. But 2-3 years back from Telangana, this issue was referred to a larger bench by the Honorable Supreme Court as to whether under 2 to 6 the Supreme Court can give a direction to the speaker to decide a case within a reasonable time or not, because speaker is also a constitutional authority. Now, as it happens in Supreme Court, the matter has been referred to a larger bench. For the last 3 years it is pending, and as my question, it has not come up for hearing and no decision has been taken on this issue. So I think the time has come when such issues should also be decided in time and within reasonable time. At one stage, almost all the state legislatures framed anti-defection law rules under the 10th schedule of the Constitution of India, and there was a provision that only an MLA can file a disqualification petition. But later on, the Supreme Court clarified that against any erring MLA or MP, the disqualification petition can be filed by any person. He may not be even an MLA, because if the MLA is connive, then even the anti-defection can be controlled by themselves. Even if you are suffering from disqualification, if you are able to manage your colleague MLAs, then it may not come. Another case in Mahachandra Prasad Singh from Bihar, the Supreme Court said that if you file a disqualification petition, then you can't even withdraw it. It is for the speaker to decide, because speaker is bound to decide that case. Though now things have changed and the speakers are taking that partisan stand. In that case, that was also held that you can't withdraw those petitions. I will not like to give you a very long citation of all the judgments. Now there are a number starting from Prakash Singh Badal, Kohito Holohon, till latest now the Manipur case, where the issues have been dealt with. In Kohito Holohon, so the Supreme Court in that judgment, which is a very old judgment, 1992, for the first time there was a detailed judgment by the Supreme Court on various aspects of the anti-defection law. The Supreme Court said that the order of the speaker as per paragraph 6 is final, but still it can be challenged on 3 grounds: mala fide, perverse, and patent illegality on record. And the Supreme Court also said in that case that it is only the final order of the speaker which can be challenged. You can't come in between. In my view, there is a time now to review that also, because if the speaker doesn't decide for a long time and doesn't pass any interim order, I think that also needs reconsideration by the Honorable Court. Why can't a complainant come to the court to seek a direction that this is the interim order which has not been passed or should have been passed or should have passed, to challenge all that? In nutshell, what I wish to conclude by saying is this: the cause was very noble while enacting the 10th schedule of the Constitution of India. By and large, it was unanimous. Almost all the parties had agreed. The position was also very clear. 3 conditions for disqualification. Only 1 ground for saving your skin, paragraph 4 of the merger, 2/3. But still, people know how to come out of law. People know how to bypass the law, and especially those who are making the law themselves. So I will like to conclude by saying this law has functioned very well, but not up to the level to which it was expected. Because people have been able to find loopholes here and there, Mori Gate as we call that, and come out of it. I am of the view that once again, there is a need in the Indian political judicial fraternity to sit together and plug those loopholes which permit a person who has patently violated the law, who is clearly falling within the mischief of the 10th schedule of the Constitution of India, but because of certain things, he is able to survive, he is able to save his skin. The time has come when we have to review once again the provisions of the Constitution of India 10th schedule. It contains only about 8-9 paragraphs, not a very lengthy enactment, not a very comprehensive enactment, but deals with all the situations that can be contemplated in the case of defections. Time has come, number 1, to review the working, to plug the loopholes, take away the powers from the speaker, above all, to create awareness in the society that look here, it is a not only a constitutional, what should I say, sin that you commit. Defection is, I say, and the action of some of the speakers is committing rape on the Constitution of India. You are betraying the people on whose ticket you were elected. You have betrayed the mandate of the people. You have violated the Constitution. Such persons should not be allowed to go without the punishment. And but it's very simple. In one of these judgments, Supreme Court said, if you really feel that the party on whose ticket you were elected, you don't want to continue with that, you don't agree with the policies of that party, very simple, resign, go to the people. There have been examples in Indian politics, like Hemwati Nandan Bahuguna in 1978, when he differed with Mrs. Indira Gandhi. He was elected on the ticket of the Congress party, he resigned, and then he got elected on the ticket of the as an independent candidate from Garhwal. There are many examples in many states, but I think the time has come to review it, to have a relook it, not with a purpose to scrap it, but with a purpose to strengthen it and plug the loopholes that have been either found or managed or dig out by the vested interest. I think I have no need of saying more than that. As a matter of fact, I have to leave at 12:30 because the Honorable Chief Justice has called a meeting. So 10 minutes are there. If anybody wants to ask any question, 2 questions are there. Mr. Mittal, I have your permission. I can reply to the questions. There is a question by Rohit Singh.
Please go ahead, sir.
How do you see the remark made by Justice Nariman in recent case of Manipur case regarding the changing of authority to decide disqualification of members from speaker to another forum? I totally agree with him. I totally agree with him. Time has come now when we have to change the forum. I said in one state, it may be the one political party which is the beneficiary. In another, the same party may be the loser, but another party may be the beneficiary. By now, with all respect, I have appeared in 14 different high courts in the country. In these matters, right from Nagaland to Sikkim to Jabalpur, Karnataka, Gujarat, Allahabad, Delhi, all my neighboring states. So the time has come. I am of the view that this power should be taken away from the speaker and given to either the Election Commission of India, a tribunal consisting of the retired judges of the High Court or the Supreme Court, or some other authority which may be ultimately found out or which may ultimately be decided by all the parties by consensus at the national level. There is another, whether an elected candidate be disqualified under anti-defection law before taking oath and affirmation for membership of the Mukesh Kumar. No, Mr. Mukesh Kumar, so far as the elected MLA is concerned, he will take oath, he will start functioning. He will be disqualified only when a petition has come to the speaker. Speaker, after hearing both the parties, decides him and disqualifies him. I am again of the view, which may be a very, otherwise somebody can say that you have very strong views on that. The disqualification under the anti-defection law should also be a disqualification like convicting a person for corrupt practices under section 123 of the Representation of People Act. He should not be allowed to recontest the same election immediately. That option should be given to him before defecting. You resign from your membership. Then you may be able to recontest. But if you have been disqualified, though Article 361B says you can't be given any remunerative post unless you are re-elected. But my view is such person should also be disqualified for 6 years from contesting any election, so that a message goes to the erring MLAs or MPs that it's not that easy to change one party and join another party. There's another question by Mr. Akash. Rahul Miglani, I'm sorry. For how much time can the Assembly Speaker refuse to accept resignation of the MLAs? See, there is no time limit which has been prescribed for the acceptance of the resignation of the MLAs. It is the discretion given to the Speaker. And when the Constitution gave this discretion to the Speaker, it was expected that he will decide those issues objectively, reasonably, without any bias. But it has been observed, with all respect to the Speaker, that ordinarily Speaker with the mandate of their party. If the party says accept it, they will accept it within the same hour or few minutes. If the party says don't accept it, ordinarily they go with the party and don't decide for months together. I am of the view that such a decision should be taken by the Speaker immediately, within 2-3 days. It can be a case of compulsory, somebody might have been compelled to resign. Call him, confirm him, and then take a decision. If somebody doesn't want to continue to be a member of the House, why should Speaker insist on that? No, आप तो रहेंगे ही रहेंगे साहब, हम आपको जाने नहीं देंगे. Intention is ordinarily I am saying, to save the party to which the Speaker belongs. Yes, Rishabh Tyagi, in your view, 10th schedule not subverting the rights of members of Parliament, state legislature? No, not at all. See, you have been elected as an MP and MLA under a statute, exercising your constitutional right. If you differ with your party, you were elected on the ticket of a party. Party issued a manifesto. We will do this, and that. If you agree with the party, it's okay. If you don't agree, morality demands you resign your seat, resign from the party, go to the electorate again. Look here, I was elected on the ticket of the Congress party. I don't agree with their policies. So I'm resigning from the parliament as well as the party. I'm coming now to contest on the ticket of the BJP, whatever Congress or whatever party you want to join. Let the people decide. You are representing your constituency. It is not something personal to you. You are representing the electorate who have elected you on a promise that you belong to a particular party. If you differ that party, very good. Somebody can have the honest difference of opinion, resign, go home, get the election, get the re-election done again, come back to the House, no problem. Shri Nikhil, can speaker take suo motu cognizance in case of defection? Yes, he can. He can take. Now earlier it was only some MLA may move the application. Then came any voter can move it. And if the speaker feels, though there is a judgment that speaker, unless there is some petition before the speaker, he can't take any notice of that. There was one judgment. But I think now, in view of the law, which is now advanced to such an extent that even the speaker is being directed by the Supreme Court to take a decision within reasonable time, speaker should take suo motu notice of defection in case he feels. But before taking a decision, he has to give an opportunity of hearing to the concerned person, to the party and all that. He has to follow the principles of natural justice. Don't you think resignation of candidate Mr. Dipanshu Latka, don't you think resignation of candidates should be regulated as we see recent events in MP and Karnataka? You see, so far as the resignation part is concerned, resignation means you are leaving, you are going home. And if you want to go home, how can anybody stop you from going there? Ultimately, the decision lies with the electorate. It is the electorate who have to decide. If the same person again goes for contesting election, voters have a right to reject him. Regulation only means that after resignation, speaker has to convince himself, be satisfied that the resignation is voluntarily, not because of any compelling circumstances. Any other question? Galaxy, if we take away the power of speaker to any independent authority, don't you think it narrowly violation of separation of powers? Court have their own limits. See, this issue was discussed in detail when the power was given to the speaker. Now, it is also a fact that under the Representation of People Act, section 80-81, the election dispute of all MPs and MLAs goes to the court, High Court. The election petition goes to the High Court. And under section 86 of the Act, the High Court is expected to decide the election petitions within 6 months, which they are not able to decide. That apprehension is there, but that is if there is a delay, it will be a genuine delay because of the pendency of the more cases. Therefore, the another suggestion which is coming is that you give this power to the election commission and you give this power to the tribunal. You must have noticed in the case of AAP MLAs in Delhi, the petition was filed before the Lieutenant Governor, the President of India, because it's a UT, and ultimately it was sent to the election commission, and election commission after 2-3 months sent its report back to the President of India, whatever recommendation they had to make. So apprehension of course is there, but I think certainly the other forum will be much better than the speaker. Will not giving Madam Sonia Pandey, will not giving it to an independent body the authority to decide will again have a indirect political influence. No, the courts, the tribunals are expected to decide the issues without any political pressure. I have been telling in a number of debates and all that. Indian judiciary, salute to the Indian judiciary. In the whole world, there is only one judgment of Indian judiciary, Justice Jawaharlal Lal Sinha of the Allahabad High Court in 1975, set aside the election of the sitting Prime Minister of India to Lok Sabha. In no other democratic country where the elections take place, any Supreme Court, High Court has ever set aside the election of the Prime Minister to the House of the People. It is Indian judiciary which set aside, which declared void, ultra vires the Constitution of India, Act of National Judicial Appointment Commission, which was passed by 819 MPs of India, all elected MPs, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, unanimously. Very rare any act has been passed unanimously by the Parliament. It was passed unanimously. 5 judges of the Supreme Court, that too by the ratio of 4-1, set aside this judgment, this amendment, saying it violates the basic structure of the Constitution of India. So I feel that courts, the tribunals, work without any political influence. They still work objectively, though some exceptions you can find out here and there. The power of defections being decided on because of the power of disqualification being decided by defections given to any other authority like court, tribunal, the election commission will be, in my personal view, much better than the present forum. Shruti Dahiya, instead of changing authority, can't we put some restrictions? Why to leave it so unqualified for speaker? You see, this issue be also examined. but the experience of last about 35 years of all the cases of the speakers ultimately is now indicating towards the change of the forum. Though I must appreciate there have been speakers who, in spite of the fact that they were elected on the ticket of one political party, have taken bold decisions of deciding within time and disqualifying the MLAs of their own political party. But still, the overall experience at this moment is to shift to another judicial forum. Surinder Singh, if MP MLA resigned, he should not be allowed to contest an election again, and he should be banned for 5 years ban because there is horse trading. Yeah, I agree with you. I said earlier also, in my view, similar is the view of Sarant Singh in the light of, Sunny Sharma. Yes, I totally agree with you. I am of the view that if you are disqualified from the membership of the House because of defection under the 10th schedule of the Constitution of India, you should be disqualified for 6 years from contesting election. That will be more deterrent for those who indulge in the political defections. So I have your permission to go. I have to leave, go to a meeting of the Honorable Chief Justice at 12:30. I'm extremely sorry I couldn't devote full time.
Thank you very much, sir. We are extremely grateful to you for your erudite views on this very important subject. I'm sure our students and others who are participating in this webinar have been extremely benefited with this, with your views, your deliberation, and your discussions. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. And if anybody still, any student wants to ask me any question or discuss with me, you can give my mobile number. Nowadays, we are free sitting home, not going to court, doing nothing else. So we have much more time nowadays. They can discuss with me. They can call.
We have been able to utilize your expertise in these areas because of lockdown. Thank you very much.
Grateful. I'm grateful you gave me an opportunity. Really grateful. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Over to you, sir.
Okay. I am thankful to the Head Department of Law, Professor in charge, Professor Raman Mittal, for inviting me to this webinar on a very lively subject. I am also thankful to Mr. Akash Deep for allowing me to joining and inviting me. Along with the chief speaker, Sri Satyapal Jain ji, I take forward the statement of Professor Raman Mittal that the students and teachers has been benefited. I add to this that I am also being benefited because of the rich experience of Sri Satyapal Jain ji of appearing in 14 high courts, as he says. My idea was more than this, but he precisely says 14 high courts on the similar matters relating to the defections. So we are academicians and we look the problem from the academic point of view and jurisprudential point of view. But his insight to the problem through the speaker's office, through the court's review, etc., has given many notes to us, which we would be able to give to our students in the classroom and to the researchers. Thank you once again for choosing me as a guest speaker on the occasion. I'll see the issue from another angle. No doubt, I agree to everything, whatever has been discussed by Sri Satyapal Jain ji, whatever has been suggested by him to cover up the problem of political corruption and the corruption relating to the politics and other things when it comes to the disloyalty to the party. I am of the firm view as a constitutional law student that we have a parliamentary form of government and a democratic form of government. So when we have a democracy in the form of parliamentary democracy, then the basics of the parliamentary democracy is the inclusive participation of the people, as we say in the preamble to the Constitution, we the people of India, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, legislatures, they are the form of inclusive participation of the people. And this participation of people through the representation is for the debates, discussions, framing policy through resolutions. This is the basic purpose of the parliamentary form of democracy. So if the democracy is meant for this, when we say that the governments are being elected, people are being elected, and Constitution has given a due weightage for the elected members, defined their duties under the Constitution towards the people, constituents, and under the Constitution that has been defined. They have been given the duties. Basic duty is to participate in the debates, give their free opinion, and frame the policy. In my opinion, which I have been looking forward, looking in the working of the 10th schedule, the anti-defection law, but I have found with the passage of time of around 35 years that the anti-defection law gives the preference to the political party and not to the membership of the House. Members are elected as a member of the House primarily under the Constitution, but we understand that the parliamentary democracy is being run, maintained, and being successful, or whatever is being done, that is done by the political parties. So if political parties are being given preference, if a member is being given deference, that if you speak freely, the issue has been taken up by Sri Satyapal Jain ji, that the once person speaks against the whip of the political party to be present in the House and vote in a particular manner or not to vote in a particular subject, then it is a loyalty to the party. Anti-defection law makes the elected member under the Constitution of India towards the political party. To my mind, it narrows down the meaning of democracy and participatory democracy, basically the representative form of the government, where members are made loyal to the political party. Yes, I agree fully to Sri Satyapal Jain ji and to many others. And I may also reach a conclusion if I have to choose between the two options. The first option is that defections has caused destabilization of the government. Government cannot complete their term because of Gayaram and Ayaram and many other things. If the defections continue to take place, then in the defections, what we find is that there is no stability for the government, which the Constitution says the government will work for the 5 years term, 5 years tenure, 5 years period has been given. But because of Gayaram and Ayaram, it can't be done. Yes, the anti-defection law has achieved this. It has provided more or less a stable governments. When we see in 2001, 91st Amendment to the Constitution came and the rule of one-third has been scrapped, which has been misused prior to that. After that, we see most of the time the governments which are elected, they complete their term, fearing that the anti-defection law will catch them and they will invite the disqualification. I was seeing the questions here. Some of the student or teacher has put the question, which says that there should be disqualification for 6 years and the member should not be allowed to recontest the election. Presently, it is being allowed under the 91st Amendment 102 and 191 articles. To my hypothesis, if I see this, then it means there is a iron curtain on the loyalty of a member. Once you are elected to the House, you will speak the voice of political party. Have you noticed that where the debates of the House has gone? What is the quality of the debate? If the one-line whip is being issued without considering the merit of the question, merit of the issue and other things, one-line whip is being issued that you need to present in the House and you will vote in a particular manner. It means freedom of the person has gone. Freedom of the member has gone. He can't express his own views. If the majority doesn't agree, then we can see we have seen in some of the states, we have started noticing some of the states in Karnataka, in Madhya Pradesh, and earlier too, we have noticed that many things can happen, that there is a mass defections in the parties, and it will cause another type of challenge to the democracy itself. Debates has been lowered. The quality of the debates, because everybody knows the outcome, and even the press knows the outcome. What is the outcome of the discussion in the House? So anti-defection law has made the things very predictable. And for the sake of this policy framing, we say that good views can come from any member. It can be private member, it can be independent member, it can be across the political party. But because of the BIP, this kind of thing has been not been there, and the purpose of parliamentary democracy is in conflict with the anti-defection law, where it says that this is a loyalty to the political party. When I see the constitution, the word political party used first time by the 52nd Amendment in the year 1985. Before that, we understand that the government is formed by a political party. We can say some political parties being running the government. Presently, it is NDA which is running the government. Prior to that, it is UPA which was running the government. So sometimes we say it is a government of a political party, or in other term, we can say that it is a party of the government. Either way, this is correct. Democracy, representative democracy, is being managed by the political parties. But constitution as such has not dealt with the aspect that the democracy be run by the political parties. 52nd Amendment uses this expression, political parties. What happens in the political parties, by the way? Political party have their own constitution. What is their constitution? It is open in the public domain. How their members are being enrolled, how they collect the funds, what is the rule for them, whether there is a inter-party democracy or not, whether if they are representing the democracy, they are giving the democracy, they are defining the democracy, they are ruling through democratic process. A political party has a basic thing of democracy. Can they open up? Can they show up their enrollments? Can they show up their funding? Can they show up their expenditure? Can they show up their karyakartas? Can they show up any type of expenditure which is available? This is not in the public domain. In the past decade, Election Commission of India has passed the guidelines and advisory to all political parties that elections should be held, and this political party should stick to the basis of the democracy. They should elect their head after every 2 years or 3 years. We have seen the elections of every political party where it says that, oh, there shall be only one candidate for the office of president of a party X, party Y. It is not the case of any particular party. But we see that there is only one candidate for the post of president. So it means it can happen once, it can happen to one political party, but it is happening to all political parties. So it means there is no basic democracy to them. If there is no basic democracy to them, then what is the control with the election commission to control the political parties? Present law is that the election commission can register, not can register, but election commission, when somebody applies for the registration of a political party, then election commission registers the political party. And further, on the basis of vote share, they classify the parties, national parties and state parties, on the number of votes. And they continue to do this after every elections, that this party is now from state party to national party, from national party to state party, is continued to do. But suppose a party has been registered with the election commission and it is not contesting now elections. So if not contesting the election, can election commission deregister a political party? I think present regulations doesn't allow the election commission to deregister a political party. If deregistration is not there, then election commission can't proceed to this. Therefore, deregistration is not with the election commission. Election commission is obliged only to register them as political party. Election commission can issue them only guidelines. My question is only to this, that the parliamentary democracy can be successful only if political party manages the democracy well. We can say, for the sake of satisfaction, that our political parties are managing the democracy. Therefore, we have come a long way of 70 years, and the constitution is functioning, democracy is functioning, everything is there. For that, credit goes to political parties. But can't we say now that there should be democracy, minimum democracy of something when we say that the political parties are being also thrown open to the public view, public eye, where they can show everything of their sources of funding, of their karyakartas, of how they function. Can this be there? Can legislation be there? Can minimum guidelines be there? Or we can say to start with, all political parties can agree to some points that this should be there, and all political parties are being taken care of. There is another thing of related to anti-defection law. We used to debate the thing like India has a parliamentary form of government, not the presidential form of government. But as Shri Satyapal Jain ji has also pointed out, because it is being quoted in the judgment of Kehata Holland and other judgments also, that it is the goodwill of the party which helps the candidate to win the election. So it is the duty of the candidate to continue to stick to the ideology of that political party. Agree. That is there. It can be there. But at the same time, as he said, that people vote for a leader. He quote, for example, in 1971, people voted for Srimati Gandhi. In 2014 and 19, people voted for the present Prime Minister. If this is the case, this is the voting pattern in India, then in academics, in constitution, theoretically we are parliamentary form of government, where people are elected, they are representing the people, and finally they come together and they elect their leader, and that leader becomes prime minister. So if it is the aura of the prime minister, and anti-defection law has helped this, that our parliamentary form of government has been strengthened to now towards this presidential form of government, then we have to see from both angles that how much emphasis should be there on defection. And if we continue with this, and as a student were asking that the this disqualification maybe for 6 years, so they are not able to come back, then it would be more dangerous, and it would be more serious, and it means they cannot join the house again during this term of 5 years. So it means now the chief minister, the prime minister is unbridled, because he's the chairman of the council of ministers. He takes all decision on the council of ministers, understanding, as the constitution provides, that ministers are appointed on the recommendation of prime minister, and they can also be terminated by the president on the recommendation of a president. It is a prerogative of the prime minister to induct ministers in the council of ministers, so he's pretty sure about their loyalty towards him. And if anti-defection law says that if you speak against the prime minister, you will speak against the ideology of the prime minister or the political party, then it will invite the anti-defection law disqualification. Then we can see that this system of parliamentary form of government is being turned, or maybe turned, towards the one-man rule, which is I think not the idea and not the hallmark of the parliamentary democracy, where we see that that this participation of the people, participation for the decision making, where not only one person, but it's a group of people who come together and take a final call, final decision. It is like this. Other suggestion which is being given by Satyapal Jain ji, I agree to them. There should be a tribunal, but I have my own restrictions that if we seek a tribunal towards this resolution of the on the disqualification of the members, then it should be remain with the elected members. If it goes to the judicial, if it goes to the retired judges, if it go beyond house, then we have separation of powers. We have parliamentary powers. Not parliament is not all sovereign, but at least it interferes with the interference to the parliamentary affairs is not being expected, as it is also being respected by the constitution, that unnecessary there shall not be interference by the judiciary in parliament, and the parliament shall not unnecessarily interfere in the working of the Supreme Court, High Court. So I think these are my views. Once Satyapal Jain ji has visited all the judgments and all examples relating to this working of the 10th schedule, I hope no need to touch it because I have learned from this. So this is the other aspect of the anti-defection law. But anti-defection law provides stability. I am for stability of the government, but at the same time, the freedom, speech of expression, and a critical view and a debate in the House should be meaningful. So any reform, whatever reforms takes place, it should be keeping in view the overall democracy and the overall role of the members, not only their loyalty towards the political party, their loyalty towards the constitution, their loyalty towards the we the people of India, to the republic and to the system and these things. Thank you very much, Ramanji. Thank you very much, Akashji. And if there are certain questions, then I can take up. But uh, Akashdeep has to pronounce the question because there are 20 questions, and I think some of the question has been answered by Sri Satyapal Jain ji. So if there are few questions which are not been answered, I definitely do that.
Yeah, Akash, please switch on your
Yeah,
mic.
Akash.
It is switched on?
Yeah, it's okay now.
Okay.
Yes.
So given the fact that anti-defection law has provided stability and we have tradition of Aya Ram Gaya Ram, though it has also lowered the quality of debate and inter-party democracy has gone down, what is the solution we have at our hands?
I think the conventions can play the roles. To my considered view, we have a written constitution. No doubt we have a lengthiest constitution in the world. Each and everything has been written, but political parties appears only in 1985 in the constitution. But it doesn't mean that political party has no role, no contribution towards this democracy. So some healthy convention should have been developed. As I say, as Satyapal Jain ji has also said, that some of the speakers has decided against the interest, some of the speakers has decided against the interest of their own political party. So if we are thinking of a tribunal, why can't we think that if speaker has to take a decision, then there must be some other person also, speaker from other house or the chairman of the other house, it can also be there. So there is a variety, and if we consider there are 2-3 persons, then politically also 2-3 persons do not agree to the same thing unless and until they have a whip. In a house there is a whip, but if you say speaker and deputy speaker both will decide, then definitely there would be outcome. But we have noticed that deputy speaker belongs to the other party, not to the ruling party. That is the convention we have settled down. So if we are talking about the tribunal and more than one person, so the solution lies only in the house. And if we start uh, accepting, if we start praising the decisions of the speaker who can decide on merit against their own political party, I think democracy would be strengthened, because constitution, law, they are there, but at the same time, what we see is that the conventions are the best nurturing the democracy. So our politician has to rise to the occasion and can say that this is day and this is night and this is whatever they can call this. They need not to decide on the political considerations. G.
Sir,
Political convention is the answer.
Okay. So we have one more question from Surinder Singh. Sir, in Madhya Pradesh, 22 MLA resigned and joined the BJP. Now they will contest again. My question, why not a law should be enacted if MLA resigned, he will not contest again and he should be banned for 5 years from contesting election. This would save the horse trading, public money, which will be expended on his elections and sometimes save the majority government of the state.
That is what I have propounded. I think this was my hypothesis, that if you continue to put the restrictions on the members to criticize the political party and the leadership, the ministers and chief minister, then what would be the outcome? Outcome is then one person is running the state, one person is running the country. That is we have to avoid this. So therefore, the thing which has been very practically suggested by Sri Satyapal Jain ji, that there has to be a tribunal. And if there are more than one person, say there are 3 persons from variety of ideologies and variety of political parties and variety of designations, then definitely the outcome would be on merit. We should go to this side, not on the banning them for contesting the elections. Otherwise, you will reduce them to the puppets that you are elected for 5 years, you are MLA for 5 years, but if you are intelligent, you can contribute for the policy making, but yes, you will not be consulted for 5 years. Let us not give this kind of blank check to the parliamentary form of democracy, which is a collective form of democracy, where decisions are being taken by the group and not by the party. I can add one more thing here, that what we have noticed, that in India, political parties has been organized, constituted, and they are flourished too on the family basis. Except few examples, one or two political parties we can name. Rest are so. We are, to whom we are giving the tool of not contesting the election, person who has been elected by 1 lakh person as a member of the house, or by 10 lakh people who is a member of the Lok Sabha. And why we have been doing this? So we have to understand the parliamentary form of democracy. So we have to make it participatory through the process of a tribunalization of speaker, that there are more than persons along with speaker, so decision can be taken on merit. The ban of the person will not solve the problems. Ji.
So we have question from Rishabh Tyagi. Sir,
Ji.
does speaker have the power to review his order of disqualification, and if no, how it can be corrected?
It's a judicial review. It is a considered this whenever the speaker takes a decision, then it goes to the High Court in the form of a writ, or the Supreme Court in the form of writ. It is a not review by him, but is a review. A judicial review is there. His decision is always reviewed. His decision is not final.
Sir, one more question from Shruti Dahiya. Sir, the
Ji.
purpose of anti-defection law is majorly to achieve stability. So why cannot we impose some other kinds of disqualification or penal provision instead of disqualifying them?
If Shruti could speak and say that what kind of other things, but they are considering. There are many things under the procedure. What kind of disqualification and what kind of considerations are there that need to be specified? Specifically, we are talking about anti-defection law, and if there are conditions, there are terms and conditions. There are many other under Representation of People Act where it invites the disqualifications to clean the system of election and all that. We all understand, we are all post-graduation students, our teachers, we all understand there's a lot of corruption in election and the things relating to the elections. But it doesn't mean that we throw away the elections. Election is strength.
Sir, one question from Sunny Sharma. Sir, there must
Ji.
be accountability of legislators to people who have given them the mandate.
Yes. That is what I have been propagating, that whatever measures, whatever punishment we are giving to these MLAs or MPs, it should be keeping in view that they have been elected and duly representing the people of this country. It's a bill of people. Therefore, their conduct should be like this, that they should be punished, but not banning them. Otherwise, one constituency, and if we see this law very strictly, then in 2007, when there was a trust vote by Shri Manmohan Singh ji in the House, I think 27 or 28 MLA during that floor test crossed the floor of the House. Opposition voted for government, and government people voted to the other side. And if we see that no doubt elections were not held at that time due to certain technicalities, but if we see, if the elections are being held under such point of time, then what will happen? It will create a havoc in this thing. So all political party, they have the solution too. They have the solution too, and solution lies in the convention, as quoted by Satyapal Jain ji, that there are very good speakers who can decide on merit. So if there is a tribunal, there are few political people alongside him sitting and have to decide, then definitely decisions would be on merit.
Sir, one question from Rohtash. Sir, do you think that sometimes speaker serves party interest by delaying the decision?
That is the whole story of anti-defection law. That anti-defection law is not successful because speakers are obliged to their political ideology and their political party, and they take decision only in favor of the a ruling party, because the speaker belongs to ruling party. There is no exception to this in India. In smaller house, in parliament, in states, there is no exception to this, that the speaker belongs to the ruling party. So the effort, last till the last minute effort of the speaker is that his government, his party should save the government. So it is the speaker who is marking this law overall. Why we are thinking of reviewing or redrafting this law? Why we are thinking of a tribunal to handle the cases relating to defection? It is because of the speaker.
Sir, one question from Dipanshu Mehra. Sir, anti-defection law restrict the freedom of speech of a member within the political party. Don't you think these loopholes make a democracy weak? And what are the suggestions you like to suggest?
This is a valid point, and everybody, every student, every citizen can substantiate this statement by viewing the debate in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha or in the state legislatures. What is the quality of debate? What are the contents of the debate? Because they have been working under a whip. Whenever there is a debate, when there is a live telecast of the proceeding, then we know that cart has been put before the horse. What members can discuss? Can they discuss on merit? So merit is blown away before the discussion itself. It pains the students of political science. It pains the students of constitutional law that we are hearing a debate of which the result is already there because of the whip. Whip is on record. It is open, and everybody knows that what is going to the result. Only procedure is to be seen, that who speaks what, who can make a louder noise. There is no quality of debate. I am not leveling any allegation against the honorable members of the House, but everybody can witness this, can substantiate the statement of this student who has asked question, can see the quality of the debate, because debate are concluded. It has the things has been concluded, and still we are debating. Ji.
Sir, one question from Dr. Nitesh Sharswat. Party-based election system in India till date is a success or not? I think it is not. What other system can replace as a reform? And what could have been the results if they could have been adopted this alternative system? Anti-defection.
Nitesh ji and Akash ji, I am of the firm view that the system which has taken us for 70 years, let us not cast this system as unsuccessful system. System is successful, constitution is successful. If we are suggesting certain amendments, if we are suggesting certain procedural things, we are experimenting certain models in smaller states, we can do that. Then it doesn't mean that we are throwing away the baby with the bathwater. As I told you, the corruption is the root of the election is the root of corruption. But at the same time, we cannot shun the elections. That there are a lot of corruption, so let us shun the election and do away with the elections. No, the system, political party system, the election system, I think it has worked for India. We should boast of its success. But yes, we know its weaknesses. We know there are people in this system who want benefits for themselves. There are families who want benefits for themselves. We have to identify them, and we have to modify this system only, because this system has shown us very positive result as far as the democracy goes. This is not being result elsewhere in the neighboring countries or elsewhere. When we see the constitution, the system of this election, this has given us many things. Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar has given a system. It is not a government of people, by the people, and for the people. We have included in that we have a good number of people from across the castes, across the tribes. So due representation has been given to the SCs, to the STs, for their recognition that constitution belongs to equality, but at the same time equality among equals, but those who are deprived, it is an inclusive growth basically. So everybody has been given space in the constitution. Let us not say that the present system is not working. Present system is working. What we are discussing, how to make the system more effective. Yes, it can be more effective, more meaningful, but not say that we should go with this system. I think this should not be there, that we should discard the system and experiment something new.
Thank you, sir. We don't have any more questions. So now I would like to
So
conclude.
nice of you.
Thank you, sir. So now I would like to conclude the session by
Thank you.
giving vote of thanks on the behalf of Campus Law Center, University of Delhi. I would like to thank Shri Satyapal Jain sir for his valuable presence. So I would also like to thank Professor Dr. Devinder Singh for his valuable presence. So I must accept that you have very beautifully explained the concept of anti-defection law from the viewpoint of the political parties. You have also touched upon the historical background of the law, and so very importantly, you have answered each and every question asked by your participants. Thank you very much, sir. I wish to thank our professor in charge, Professor Dr. Raman Mittal sir, for his immense support and fruitful suggestion for organizing this event. Now, I would like to end up this session. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ramanji. Thank you, Akashdeep.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Subject IPR.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. We would like to hear from you in future too
Sure, sir. Sure, anytime.
on IPR